Are you struggling to nail your behavior-based interviews? Today, I'm sharing the cheat code to pass any behavioral-based interview with flying colors. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, then hit that subscribe button and then hit the bell so that you're notified every time I release a new video just like this one. My name is Stoltzfus. I'm the founder of the Job Hackers Network. We help leaders execute strategic job searches by building their brand, networking effectively, and getting to the table consistently with hiring leaders. The first thing I want to go into today is what is a behavioral-based interview? Behavioral-based interviews focus on how individuals have handled specific scenarios in the past to predict how they'll handle similar situations as they move forward in their career. Most of the time, these questions are going to start with something like, tell me about a time. I know you all have heard those questions. Tell me about a time that. In most of those scenarios, we're just going to the first thing that comes to our mind. But this is a big mistake. That's a death nail. We've got to prepare properly for this. Hence, what I'm teaching you today. Now, there are many top companies that are known for using behavioral-based interviews. Some of those companies would include Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Apple, Netflix, Salesforce, LinkedIn, Tesla. Now, these are just some to name a few, but definitely highly recognizable and highly desirable employers that are using this technique to understand how is an individual going to show up based on what they've done before. Let's go into a second big component, which is why are organizations using behavioral-based interviews? And I've got three things that I want to dial into on this one for you. The first one is predictive validity. Studies have shown that if you've already done certain behaviors and you're able to show those behaviors, you're more likely to be able to deliver those things in the future. So it is more effective in predicting future performance. When we're looking at the things you've actually done and not just estimating, what would I do? Well, what did you do? The second big component is standardization. Standardization is really important to have these models that we're teaching to all interviewers within an organization so that they're approaching the interview from a uniform position. Why? Because of the unconscious biases that these individuals have, and we're trying to overcome some of those things. We do it through corporate training that I've been involved in quite a bit, but overall, if we can provide and ask the same questions to each candidate, then we're putting everybody on a similar stage and giving them equal opportunity to step forward and connect a story to what they've delivered. The third one is going to be skill evaluation. In the delivery of a behavioral-based interview answer, you're telling a story. And within that story are multiple different skills that you utilized to deliver. Things like communication, cross-functional collaboration, or even technical skills. And so organizations have found that looking back at those stories and diving into some of the actions of how you delivered those things is a very effective way to extract out and see the skills in practice. Let's jump into the third component, which is stories. This is the how. How do you deliver, right? The key to behavioral-based interview questions is a building out of your stories that you're then going to use to answer each and every one of those questions. It truly doesn't matter what the question is that's asked. If you have a set of stories, 7 to 10 stories is what I recommend to my clients. If you have a set of 7 to 10 stories where you walked through this templating approach. What is the templating approach? When faced with this, I did this, and it yielded this. So we've got the situation, the action, and the results. When that's played out in your mind and you're prepared with those stories, 7 to 10 of these amazing impact plays, then it does not matter what question comes at you from a behavioral-based perspective. Somebody could say, tell me about a time that you worked with difficult people. Awesome. I've got a story that I can dive into. I just dive in at that entry point, the point of dealing with those difficult people. Tell me about a time that you delivered impeccable business results. Great, so now we're at the end of the story, and I'm simply looking through my Rolodex of 7 to 10 stories and deciding which one had the biggest impact play at the end, and then working through the delivery of that story. So you can find an entry point into any of your stories based upon just about any question. And this is much, much more effective than preparing for specific questions, because you don't know what questions are going to be asked in the interview. And so we have to have a methodology that enables us to still prepare well, but for any question that's asked. And the key to that is having 7 to 10 career stories. When faced with this, I did this and it yielded this, that will enable you to then answer any question. Let's look at a few specific examples of what these stories would look like. Okay? Example number 1. Asked to turn around a low-performing engineering group, utilized my leadership framework to equip, engage, and unleash, enabling the team's delivery of 3 critical product launches, netting $100 million in new revenue in just 1 year. And in that story, you've got the situation, we're teeing it up when faced with this. Then, this is what I did, right? And in this case, using a model to show equip, engage, and unleash. And then we've got solid results all the way down to the $100 million of revenue. Okay, so that's example number 1. Let's look at example number 2. When faced with low associate engagement, created and led a cross-functional project team resulting in 3 key initiatives that increased engagement by 7% year over year. Again, we've got, when faced with this, that situation is teed up so that an individual can say, okay, I've got a similar situation like this. Now, this second one is more for an HR business partner. This one comes from my background as a director HRBP. That individual is going to be most focused on associate engagement and associate retention. So this story drills right into that, how we directly affected the most important metrics within that role. Now, in that example, I was leading a cross-functional team, a global team. So ask me a question about people, ask me a question about, facilitating something, ask me a question about drawing together a team, ask me a question about stakeholder buy-in. Boom, I've got a story for you. So you can see how you can use that for just about any question. It just is that the question creates a different entry point into where we're starting the story and how we're starting the story. If this video is helping you, then hit that like button down below and answer this question in the comments. Do you have your amazing stories written down on paper? Go down to the comments, give me a yes, give me a thumbs up. If you've already gone through this process of thinking through those amazing stories that you're going to use to answer your behavioral-based questions. The fourth component that I want to go through is how do you deliver your stories in an interview in a very effective manner. So I've got a couple of tips here, and one is going to help those individuals that tend to be long-winded, that just drown on and go deeper and deeper and deeper and almost lose themselves and forget where they're even going as they're answering a question. And I have seen this so many times. So this is the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule means that when you're asked that question, you really only have about 2 minutes to give your initial answer. So they're asking a question, tell me about a time that you did this. You're jumping in and within that 2-minute time period explaining this is what we were facing. Then as I stepped in, this is what we did. This is what I specifically did. Not just we, but I specifically did and owned in this delivery. Now, this was the outcome. And that outcome should be as close to revenue as you can possibly get to. So if you can show an impact to revenue, that's the strongest, but we can't always show that direct impact to revenue, but you've got to get down to a number, right? A percentile change in something. So I did this, boom, and now here's the results. And then you pause. Within a 2-minute time period, you've delivered that, but you could tell more, right? You could dive deeper, so you pause and say, is there a specific part of that story that you'd like for me to dive deeper into? Now that individual has the opportunity to say, yes, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about the specific actions that you took. I'd love to hear more about the leadership that you executed. I'd love to hear more about those specific financial results. And they're taking you to the part that's important to them. And this is money. This is so helpful because now they're not trying to extract something from your story. They're taking you there and they're telling you what's important to them in every single story. The second component to telling your stories is you want to be mindful of the layer or the level from which you're telling your stories. If you're telling a story of leading a project from a director level, then you're going to distance yourself more from the work, from the doing, from the tasks, from the delivery, and bring yourself up into the strategy. Even higher up into the strategy if you're telling it from a VP level, right? But if you're telling it from a single contributor perspective, then you want to bring yourself closer to the doing of the work so that you're not showing yourself as being overqualified. You're not showing yourself as being underqualified, but you're putting yourself into the right layer, because you can tell any story from a different layer, from that strategy layer all the way down to the execution layer. And so think about that as you're delivering your specific stories. You can have a core set of 7 to 10 stories that you use in every single interview. And they might be some for single contributor and some for a director or a leadership role. But you can still use the same stories as long as you're telling it from the proper layer, the proper level.
Are you ready to start or optimize your job search process? Do you feel stuck and need help connecting the dots? Join this free web class where you'll learn the step-by-step formula to control your career progression. We've helped hundreds of experienced engineering and operations leaders just like you to build their brand and grow their impact. Register for this exclusive training today to step into the driver's seat of your career.
Now, the fifth thing that you can do, and this is so helpful in the interview process, you want to prep before by creating your interview cheat sheet. What is your interview cheat sheet? It is an impeccable resume that delivers your stories. So you've got your professional history, or even better, your career highlights, where you're highlighting these big deliveries. You might not have room to put the situation, action, and results, but you can very briefly put what you did, right? Engaged. It usually starts off with an ED, an action word, engaged in this, led this, defined this, built this, and then you've always got that result. Go all the way through to the result so that your bullets don't look like a list of tasks, but they are truly an encapsulation in every single bullet of a story. So now in front of you, you step into this interview process and you have this cheat sheet in front of you that has your stories written out, right? And you've got that reminder to be able to just simply look down. You will never look weird having a resume with you in your interview, whether it's virtual or in person. So now you're able to look right down and say, okay, boom, I've got the story I'm going to tell you. And when you pause after being asked a question, it's not going to look weird. Give yourself 5 seconds. It's about all it's going to take for you to purposefully look down, pick the right story, decide on your entry point, and then boom, you're delivering that impeccable story. And you know from the beginning where you're going, the result that you're connecting to it. This is so powerful in an interview. It will make you crisp. It will make you step away from the interview and never say, oh crap, why did I not tell this story? Why did I go down that rabbit hole? That happens when you're not prepared. That happens, the rabbit hole situation happens when you're surprised by a question and you're just, oh man, I need to come up with a story on the spot, and that is so hard to do. Now here is an even higher level execution. If you've practiced these stories and you've stood in front of a mirror and you've delivered them to your spouse or significant other, right? You know these stories, not word for word, but you know the situation, the action, and the result. Now, you don't have to be present in the saying of the story. You're able to deliver that story almost on autopilot, and you're able to rise above the conversation and be the third person in the room, right? You and the interviewer, that's person one, person two, and then you looking down on the conversation. And this is an elite interviewing technique, to be above the conversation, looking down, reading the room. And if you can accomplish that, you are going to drastically increase your offer rate. Absolutely. It puts you in a position where you're able to adjust, where you're able to ask the right questions at the right time, where you're able to dig deeper when you need to dig deeper, and also step back when you need to step back. If you are struggling to get to the interview table with hiring managers so that you can deliver these impeccable stories, then we should talk. Look to the description below to find a direct link to my calendar for a one-on-one job search strategy call. And in that call, we're going to soundboard about your current process, and I'll tell you what's working in the current marketplace and build you out a high-level strategic job search plan. Now, only do this if you want to get strategic. If you are serious about taking control of your job search and putting yourself in the driver's seat. And be sure to check out this video next, Resume Best Practices for Corporate Leaders, so that you can take this one step further, right? Make that interview cheat sheet where you have got an impeccable value proposition that is supported by your amazing stories. I will see you in the next one.